I'm most surprised by, though, Light, is over in the bottom half of the bracket. NXZ, Royan Jones, taking out Azure 2-1, and is now up against Pez. In what should be a PVZ, but could very well be a ZvT.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw that, mate. I was shocked when I saw NXZ Royan Jones taking down Peppy? Peppy? Mate.
What? I wasn't. I always believed in you, Royan.
Crazy, mate. Crazy.
Insane so far. That's the qualifiers for you. Always a wild card, but seeing your qualifiers, we do have a first qualification match right now. The score is going to be Glittering Ashes. LE, we're in the bottom left-hand corner map, starting all the way in the bottom left-hand corner. We have a blue player coming out from the land of the Philippines. He's going to be one of those players making up this Bermuda Triangle. He is going to be representing the Juggernaut. Everybody give it up for Caviar Napoleon Maquises Acampado, otherwise known as EnDerr.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Glittering Ashes LE, we have the Australian Protoss player himself representing, again, the land of Australia and also the CranKy Ducklings. He is one of our own. It is StarDuck. And very quickly, I do want to apologize for seeming a little bit distracted there, but that is because I am setting up predictions for this qualifying match. Bearing in mind, everyone, this is a best of 5. Winner moves on to the closed qualifier. Loser has to try again tomorrow, and you can place your bets.
It's like barely any time between the two open qualifiers, too.
Yeah.
It's brutal, man. It is brutal.
Oh boy, it really is. And just to catch everyone up, we did jump over to the upper half of the bracket instead. Piglet is still working his way through his series against Nux, and the winner of that goes into that lower qualifying match. But because this one was already ready for us, we decided to jump on over. And yeah, to catch everyone up, EnDerr is already a Duckling killer. He already took down Oreo. Can he take down another duck?
Well, that's gonna be tough. Because this duck is from stars.
This duck is Protoss, mate. Let's go. Oh, God. And I am really curious to see how StarDuck is going to play this out. He is opening up with a Stargate, which, again, pretty standard, especially in this matchup. But he has been watching a lot of Hero coming into the series, and he has kind of attributed a lot of his success to Hero and his style.
Yeah, I can't really fault him for that. Sort of hopping on the, whatchamacallit? Hopping on the rising... I don't really want to call him a rising star there, but, you know, a
returning star?
He's taking inspiration from a player with, I would argue, the most success so far in, when it comes to the Protoss players.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would argue that Hero is probably the best Protoss player right now. I know, obviously, Creator just made it to the GSL finals, so there is debate to be had. But I think, you know, saying that Hero is top 3 or top 2 is something that a lot of people can get behind. But before we get to that, EnDerr, mate, he has finished droning. He's going for a mass link flood.
Yeah, EnDerr doing EnDerr things here, and StarDuck is already setting up his wall. So now that as long as he sees this is coming, he should be able to wall this off. The probe is in position. But thankfully the Adept is. So we'll be able to buy himself some time.
He did not see this coming at all. The Lings are here. The wall is no longer a wall. Oh my god! EnDerr almost breaks in, but just in time, StarDuck is able to fully wall off.
Yeah, unfortunately, he will be canceling the cert base. But it's better than being dead.
Yeah, mate, that was so close! Oh, we do have a cancel there on that third as well. Could have been a lot worse, but StarDuck, he successfully defends.
How'd you finish up that pylon?
Oh. Yeah. Pylon does finish up as well, so EnDerr not really finding the damage that he wanted. He did stop droning for quite some time to make that happen, so now he has to catch up.
Yeah, this was a very committed link flood coming up from EnDerr earlier on, so it's good that he was able to delay the expansions of StarDuck. StarDuck, of course, the player who most of his MO when it comes to PvZ is be as greedy as he can get away with, and then work on a late game army. Getting that delayed is gonna go a pretty long way here in the ZvP, but as he was saying, EnDerr has lost a lot of minerals. Has spent a lot of minerals with those links.
Yeah, I also find this really peculiar as well. StarDuck, he opened up with double Oracle, he actually went triple Oracle as well, and he left his Oracles idle underneath the Overlord, so EnDerr had full vision of it. Oh my god, the first two Oracles already taking so much damage, and they really haven't done much at all. But we do have triple Oracle, so there's still a lot of DPS potential here. It's just a rough start losing so much HP.
Yeah, it means that it's going to be that much more difficult to, dive the Oracles in. He has to be a little bit more careful, pay a little bit more attention to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like so.
As he's trying to shark his way through the bases, and he will find one stray queen. That's the power of triple Oracle. A queen is not enough. It can be focused down, but up! Ooh, he ends up getting one Oracle.
Queens can be focused down, but so can Oracles, especially if they were already weakened.
Yeah. So some decent damage, getting a queen and 4 drones for 1 Oracle. It isn't bad. What's important is that StarDuck is completely switching things up and going into ground toss, but this is scouted here by the Overseer.
It's very much a game of information at this point. Very good scouting from both of our players, but who is going to react better, I suppose, is what we're about to find out. EnDerr working on a pretty strong Roach timing.
Yeah, Roach speed is on the way, +1 as well, and again, kind of Roach Ravager, Ling Bane is what you want against what StarDuck is doing, so he's responding quite well to all of this. I'm also a little bit surprised that StarDuck decided to go for Charge instead of Blink. Again, I feel like Blink is a little bit more solid and it can transition to a later game a little bit better. Charge feeling a little bit more committed, but again, it looks like, StarDuck, he was unwilling to take his gases here at his natural.
Yeah, and it does make sense. I do appreciate how StarDuck has sort of switched up the build here based on how the opening went. Because by now, I'm sure he would have liked to have a second start game.
Oh god, yeah. The longer the game goes on, the opportunity to go into Sky Toss, it is there. It is quite tempting. As StarDuck does check the 4th base to see what the drone count is looking like. As we can see, StarDuck going for another Link Flood. He's sending everything he can across the map here. StarDuck Blink is still not done. He does have +1, but again, not the largest army. He needs to warp into Zealots.
Was really worried for a second there that the Lings would be able to sneak on in, but the wall was a wall thanks to these Stalkers.
Oh god, exactly. We only have a single shield battery here. It looks like with the warp into Zealots. No, actually, the Lings. He can get in.
He can get in, but he's gonna fight the army instead, which is a questionable choice. IMO. StarDuck gets a quick warp in of Chargelets and is able to deflect the Roach army.
Yeah.
So once again, not a particularly valuable attack here from EnDerr.
Yeah, it may not matter though, because EnDerr did go for a Spire. He is going for a Muta switch, and unfortunately the scouting of StarDuck has been a little bit subpar. He has not seen that Spire. He doesn't know the kind of transition that is coming his way, and he's not ready for it. He has a Stargate so he can start Phoenixes, but again, he doesn't know that he needs to start them. Oh boy. Oh!
Now he does. Fortunate that EnDerr ran those Realists straight into a bunch of Stalkers.
Yeah, immediately cannons are being thrown down in every single mineral line.
Exactly what he needs. And they're trying to go for some multi-prong, but as you were saying with the cannons, it is a little bit trickier to get damage done.
Oh, but the
cannon's not done yet, though.
Yeah, the cannon's not ready here in the natural base. We do see a recall. The Stalkers will be able to defend the natural base. At the same time, we have a mass Zealot run by at the 4th base of EnDerr, and there were only Links here to defend.
Yeah, not a single Baneling that's out here for EnDerr, so he really doesn't have a direct counter to the Zealots. Well, aside from Mutas, I suppose, but Mutas are all the way across the map.
Yeah, they may be enough. We do have Blink on these Stalkers. They will be able to reroute over here towards the 4th base, and the Mutas are going to have a harder time dealing with all of them. Instead, they focus on the probes.
which is a pretty good target, I suppose. You know, you don't really want to be fighting all of these Stalkers with only Mutas right now.
Yeah, but again, he only gets 6 pros. Meanwhile, the Zealots still have not been dealt with, Yaku, and that massive run by was cleaned up. StarDuck, he defends, and he also takes down not just a hatchery, but also a mass amount of drones.
That was one warping, by the way, of Zealots here. 15 drones going down, and now EnDerr very much on the back foot. StarDuck way ahead of him economically in terms of the upgrades and in terms of army supply as well. He's coming down with so many Blink Stalkers, and EnDerr just doesn't have an answer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is mass muta really the answer here? There are so many Stalkers on the ground. There's not a lot of support on the ground either here for the Zerg player. The Stalkers are going to be able to take out the majority of these mutas.
Well, it's hard to say it's the answer, but it's EnDerr's answer.
He's not stopping muta production, by the way. We have 7 more mutas on the way, but Phoenixes are coming out here for StarDuck. Now, I was quickly looking at the units lost. 15 mutas have already gone down, and again, it's just not going to be. It may not be enough. Maybe it will. EnDerr believes it will.
But I don't think that belief is particularly has much basis in reality.
Yeah, the Blinks are just so damn good. Another wave of Zealots. What I'm so impressed by the way, is that StarDuck, he's reinforcing from across the map. He doesn't have a War Prism. He doesn't have a Proxy Pylon. He takes down every single muta.
GG is called, and StarDuck takes game number 1.
Wow. GG, StarDuck. Again, like, his defenses were so solid. Like what makes EnDerr such a scary opponent is that out of nowhere, he will just make a massive wave of links and just come across the map. But they never got any damage.
Yeah. The closest thing you can really say to getting damage done was that cancelled third base, but it wasn't a kill. So there was still a pretty massive refund there for StarDuck. It didn't take him too long to get his macro up and running, to get his economy up and running, I should say, and to restabilize himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the scariest stage of StarDuck, when he, you know, can stop worrying about his economy and focus on nothing but producing units and microing those units.
Mm-hmm.
As you saw, those Blink Stalkers were barely getting tickled by the mutas.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god. It was very impressive play there by our Australian Protoss. And as we get into our next game, I want to give a bit of a shout out here to Coil Twitchbot in the chat. Thank you so much, Papi. Thank you so much for the 100 bits.
Hey, thanks, bot.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yeah, whether you're human or not.
Yeah. Fun fact, the money that goes into, or that we make here on Twitch, it goes to one of these players here.
Yeah. We can't really disclose who, but it's one of them. As we continue our series on Hardwire LE. Of course, in the bottom left-hand corner map, starting all the way in the bottom left-hand corner, we have a blue Zerg player coming out from the land of the Philippines. He is, of course, El Capitan himself, representing the Juggernaut. We have Caviar, Napoleon, Maquises, Acamparo, otherwise known as EnDerr.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Hardwire LE, we have the Australian Protoss player himself, representing the CranKy Ducklings. He's the Duck of the Stars. He is up 1-0 in this series. It is StarDuck. Let's go.
Already got one. He just needs 2. He just needs dos.
Sure.
Dos momento.
Sure thing. Oh my god. But yeah, honestly, I'm pretty torn with this series because we love the Juggernaut boys, right? Mio Micah, Beastlord, Gogo Joey, and EnDerr. You know, they're almost like a second family to the CranKy Ducklings. We cast them a lot here on this channel. And Calibre, he's in the chat as well. He's here for his boy, but he's up against a Duckling. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's like your son is fighting like his cousin or something. I don't know.
Your son fighting your nephew, yeah.
Yeah, your nephew. I think that's maybe a little bit better. So my heart is torn. It's a shame that only one of them will advance through. But there's a part of me that's like, all right, man, yo, StarDuck, Do it for Oreo.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we already have one son get beaten up by the nephew.
Yeah,
So now we need the other son to get revenge.
exactly. That's parenting. Oh god.
Always compare kids and get in the fight.
The emotional damage is real.
Valuable advice. This is the invaluable advice you get here.
Yep.
CranKy Ducklings.
There you go, mate. There you go. The reason why I bring this up as well, I see Thorn 969 in the chat. Nice. Saying, you know, oh god, like lamenting a little bit that Oreo got knocked out, and again, I am as well. Thankfully, there is a second qualifier for whoever doesn't make it through, whether it's EnDerr, whether it's StarDuck. They can come back tomorrow. Neither of them want to, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough on the Saturdays.
Exactly. As
because it's in less than 24 hours.
It is in less than 24 hours. It's insane, mate. It's insane. As we have a very similar opener to game number 1. We see a Stargate opener with an Oracle, and we also see EnDerr cutting drones and going for a Ling Flood.
Yeah, hopefully StarDuck is a little bit more prepared this time. I mean, as well as he did handle the Ling Flood in game number 1, it could have definitely been better, and this time, it absolutely should be. He gets a heads up very, very early on. To be keeping the Oracle.
Come back!
Around across the map.
He fully walls off. He has confidence in his wall, but here we go. The Oracle comes back as well. As you said, StarDuck has a much faster scout of this. He is much more prepared.
And these Lings got little in game number 1. They're not gonna get anything in game number 2.
We'll see. They're going to try and focus down this gateway to bust through that wall. The gateway is honestly getting pretty low, and the Oracle runs out of energy.
Wasn't there an Adept here?
Both Adepts left. They died. Veg.
I guess I guess I confused a probe with an Adept here, yeah.
Yeah. It happens. It happens.
There's the Adept. It was hiding.
It was hiding. It was just warped in. There you go. It's hiding on ire, mate. Hiding on ire.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, again, this Ling run by doesn't really do too much. It was a pretty big investment. Quickly looking at the units lost tab, it was 11 Lings down the drain. But now he can keep an eye and deny any kind of third base. So he's feeling pretty safe to drone up.
Yeah, the flip side to this dynamic is that EnDerr has completely taken over the map control. StarDuck gonna be not really gonna be able to throw down an expansion anytime soon. So once again, he just completely switches things up, and he gets a much earlier Templar Archives.
Yeah, very fast here. What's important to note, looking at the vision of EnDerr, he went in with an Overlord. He scouted +1 and the Twilight Council. He did not see the Templar Archives behind the Mineral Line.
What's he gonna research? What is StarDuck gonna research from that Twilight Council? Well, I suppose he doesn't have to research anything, but you know, with the Templar Archives, charge loads would be a nice little bonus. EnDerr now sees the Warp Prism moving across the map. So he's throwing down a couple of spores and getting his roaches as quickly as possible back home.
Yeah, again, he's a little bit afraid that, you know, it may be DTs for all he knows, so he's preparing himself. Meanwhile, the first wave of High Templar are being morphed in for those Archons. But as you were saying, I'm also a little bit surprised we don't have charge. Very interesting, very peculiar here from StarDuck.
Yeah, well, I guess he can't really spare the gas right now. You know, High Templar are very gas-intensive units.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say he forgot it. I guess I'm sure this is intentional. I just really haven't seen this too much before.
I hope this is intentional.
I hope so as well.
I'm not as sure as you there, Light, but yeah.
I mean, StarDuck.
I can see a rationale behind it.
Yeah. Like, StarDuck is a very meticulous player. He's very methodical. If things are happening, they're happening for a reason. Unless it's about, you know, lack of scouting or like leaving units idle. You know.
The plan is always meticulous.
Yeah. There you go.
The whatchamacallit,
No, Yaku, you're
I'm lagging!
Now it's
An unexpected fatal error occurred. To help us identify the problem, please describe what you were doing when the error occurred.
It looks like Yaku's game has crashed. So we will be continuing here. But thankfully I will be able to Discord stream so Yaku can kind of help cast.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Feels bad, man. Feels bad. You're like, but I wasn't clicking.
I wasn't at all. I literally was doing nothing. Hands off the keyboard.
Yeah. StarCraft, please. Thankfully, it wasn't during a major engagement. The only thing that was happening was that we had a little bit of Archon drop harass going on. So not the biggest of deals.
And we're back.
Oh, we are back. Here we go. So hopefully, again, we don't encounter any other technical issues here. And hopefully Yaku can sort things out on his side as EnDerr is pushing out with a decent amount of roaches. What do we have at home to defend? Again, without charge, without blink, there is thankfully an immortal.
Yeah, and if worse comes to worse, you can always recall that Warpism and do a little bit of juggling.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, the Adepts are going to get fully surrounded here. Is this third base even going to survive? At the same time, Archons are harassing across the map, so, you know, we have a little bit of damage being dealt there at least, but I don't know if StarDuck can really hold on to this third.
Yeah, he has the damage potential, but he doesn't have it here right now, so he's going to have to give that up, and he does retreat to a more securable location by that natural base.
Yeah, exactly, and the roaches aren't done, by the way. They take out the third, take out another one of those stalkers in that wall. With the power of these immortals, StarDuck can force this back, but again, just forced to stay on 2 bases.
Which is a little bit worrisome here. You know, if StarDuck has any plans to get to the late game, like he typically enjoys doing, EnDerr does come in with a very nice scout, but I will say he's got some pretty good upgrades. He's getting Blink right now, so maybe the play is to try to maybe, I don't know, take out a base of EnDerr or something like that, and then expand from there, or at the very least, reestablish his map control.
I mean, unfortunately, StarDuck just doesn't really have much of an army. He turns around. What I was pointing out is that StarDuck is heavily oversaturated. He did not intend to go for a 2-base all-in. He is set up to expand and take a third, and he just can't. He invested so much into all these workers. That's why the worker count is so close, but his economy just isn't where it needs to be.
So the worker count is so close, but EnDerr's army count is way into the stratosphere.
Yeah,
he's about to be maxed out.
Essentially maxed out at this point. He's coming across the map. What do we have to at home to defend? We do have Blink. It did just finish up. +2 is about to finish up for this fight as well, but it's still not done.
Yeah, very nice zoning biles coming out from EnDerr, and he can continue to put pressure on this natural base. Mass warping of stalkers, it seems, is going to come in to try to deter this, and this is a very nice position for StarDuck to fight.
Yeah, he does have the concave, he does have those immortals dishing out a lot of that damage, but he just doesn't have the numbers. The Roach Ravager, as inefficiently as he is trading, he is forcing his way through the buffer of the Stalkers.
Yeah, the map not quite on StarDuck's side right now. The Ravagers not really landing in battles, but at the same time not dying either, so they're continuing to put out more and more DPS. This one Oracle gonna be out of energy pretty soon. And EnDerr is just continuing to remax on roaches. GG is called. EnDerr ties up that series sideways 1-1.
Ah, GG. Well played. EnDerr does tie it up. And again, that was a really awkward build there by StarDuck. Going, like, skipping out on charge, going for an Archon drop, but without DTs, going into a Temple Archives instead. Yeah. Something that I haven't really seen too much of before. Interesting.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that is influenced by, you know, seeing it, by scouting EnDerr's initial link flood, because while it does seem that he was thrown off a little bit, like his game plan was thrown off a little bit, it's like you said, StarDuck doesn't plan anything that isn't meticulous, or StarDuck doesn't plan anything that doesn't make sense, right? StarDuck is somebody who, you know, will always. I mean, it's like you said, if he does something, it's for a reason.
Yeah,
and that reason is usually because he knows that it can be effective.
Yeah, I'll be honest. If StarDuck wins this series, I am tempted to drag him on for an interview and ask him about that game. Only if he wins. Only if he wins. Definitely no losers interview. No losers interview. Oh boy. But with that, EnDerr ties up the series 1-1, and now we are going to get into game number 3. As a reminder, though, this is still a best of 5.
Yeah, so plenty of opportunities to come back. So neither player needs un momento; they need un dos momento. Por favor.
There you go, mate. There you go. Oh boy.
So we keep our Ethernet cables crossed, or I guess in this case our SLI bridges crossed. I don't even use SLI. We have our continuing our series on 2,000 atmospheres. LE, of course, in the top right-hand corner of the map, swinging all the way in the top right-hand corner. We have a blue Zerg player coming out from the land of the Philippines. He is, of course, going to be representing the juggernaut, that nautical army, otherwise known as the Navy. We have Caviar, Napoleon, Maquises, Acampado himself, EnDerr.
And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of 2,000 atmospheres ALE, we have the Australian Protoss player himself representing the CranKy Ducklings, having a peculiar build in game 2. But here in game number 3, it is StarDuck.
I see Calibre coming out here in chat, coming in to support his boy.
Best of luck, Calibre. Best of luck. He's so greedy. He's already got Mia Micah in the next round, you know? Like,
yeah, exactly. Let us have something, huh?
To be fair, in an ideal world, all of our boys get through, you know, EnDerr, Oreo, and StarDuck. Oh, but we'll see. We'll see if that can really come to pass in the end, as we are finding out, you know, kind of like a tiebreaker in a way, you know, who can take a lead in this series.
That's exactly what it is, a tiebreaker.
There you go.
I guess not an official tiebreaker, just yeah.
Oh boy, as so far, you know, we haven't quite seen the tech choice of StarDuck. Nothing too crazy happening either. I think something else to bear in mind is that StarDuck isn't the most standard player. He can play standard, but he can also whip out some crazy builds. He is not afraid to proxy. He is not afraid to cannon rush.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of what he was known for very, very early on, before we even signed him. It was the fact that he had a massive bag of tricks, a huge variety of different cheeses that he could throw at you, both as Protoss and as Zerg. But over time, he has sort of mellowed out a little bit. He's gotten to a point where I think he actually does prefer standard and macro play, but like you said, he's never really shed that side of him that says, go for a proxy.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him so dangerous.
Exactly. Like, I think it's a good thing, you know. Ideally, if you want to be a strong player, you want to be able to do both, right? You want to be confident enough to do both as well. You don't want to be predictable. You don't want to just be that macro guy, right? So we'll see if that does influence this series. So far, standard opener, we do have a little bit of a Ling scout, but the Adept is here to deny the Ling from entry into the main.
Yeah, no scout going to be coming out here for EnDerr at least.
Yeah, as mate, EnDerr loves this. Every single game so far, on point. He goes up to 26 or 27 drones, then he Ling floods. Every single time, without fail.
Alright, well, I guess the jury's still out on how effective this build really is. I do kind of feel like that game that EnDerr just won on Heartwire, was it? Heartwire? Yeah, Heartwire. The opening didn't really do much for him. It was more of the mid game that a very competent mid game that won him that map as the Lings come and flood in, but will have to dip out as the Oracle comes back home.
Exactly. Once again, the same opener from StarDuck. Once again, the Lings are not able to break in. The important difference as well is that this time both Adepts didn't get caught out in the middle of the map. They are here at home, so there's that much more DPS, and StarDuck doesn't have to rely as much on the one Oracle and its Pulsar beam to clean up the Lings.
But once again, we're getting a fairly familiar situation where EnDerr establishes his map control and is going to prevent StarDuck from getting a base for a little while at least.
Yeah, I think that's what you were alluding to a little bit as well at the start, talking about how it wasn't necessarily all these things that won EnDerr the game, it's just the constant aggression that just didn't allow StarDuck to expand and take a third. Speaking of, another wave of Lings, here to deny the third.
To be cancelled. Yeah, it's like clockwork.
Oh.
Everything is on schedule.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure StarDuck is feeling a little bit frustrated with this. I'm sure he wants his third base desperately. Thankfully, it was a cancel, not a kill, and he is working his way into something a little bit more standard as a follow-up from those Oracles.
Link Stalkers with +1. This is, once again, just a lot more. This, to me, is something that I don't want to say makes more sense than the Templar Archives, because I could see the rationale behind that, and I do trust StarDuck enough to believe that it does make sense. But this is, I suppose, something a bit more reliable, right? Something a bit more orthodox, and it's more orthodox for a reason.
Yeah, it's more solid, you know. It's
Yep.
It's more standard for a reason as well. Meanwhile, both Oracles get across the map. They do have that one-shot potential. 5, 6 drones already going down, but at the same time, we have that Ling run by.
And it is actually doing wonders against this army. Not the best positioning for a couple of these units, but they were able to retreat to the choke points provided by the SimCity and will be able to chase away the Lings without taking too much damage. When it's all said and done, StarDuck comes out ahead when it comes to the worker kills, but EnDerr still has a decent lead when it comes to the actual workers active.
Yeah, I just love the way that StarDuck has adapted. Like, he has been so much more conservative with his unit control and his unit positioning that he now has his third up and running, something that he just could not accomplish in the previous game. And now with this, you know, his adepts from the early game, they survived. The Oracles, they were able to get a little bit of damage. They're still alive as well, so they can dive back in, either to kill drones or throw down some stasis traps. And right, our upgrades are done.
Yeah, EnDerr is trailing a little bit behind. Only having metabolic boost at the moment, but it's just because he hasn't quite been able to get to the lair yet, I don't think.
Yeah, a bit of a little bit of a questionable shade here in the end for StarDuck. All the adepts do get cleaned up. Meanwhile, the Queen was actually attacking the gas guys, so a little bit of miscontrol, but it's all good.
Yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate. Oracle sit back in, get a couple more drone kills, nothing too major, but once again, anything you can really do to narrow the worker deficit.
Yeah, exactly. And as StarDuck expands and takes a fourth base, EnDerr is here to try and deny that. We have a decent amount of roaches, a lot of Ravagers as well. But again, this time we have a decent army from StarDuck with Blink and +1. Like, he's going to have a response here to this army, and he may hold on to this fourth.
I was worried that the fourth might be too ambitious, but StarDuck does have the firepower to back it up and to secure that fourth base.
Oh!
EnDerr will land the Biles and kill both Stalkers and the Warp Prism. That's a pretty devastating blow, all things considered. StarDuck still technically has the map control, but once things start turning sour, he will not be able to reinforce the Stalkers.
Yeah, honestly, that was brutal, mate. StarDuck was in the middle of moving out. He wanted to be the aggressor, and now he cannot reinforce across the map. He doesn't have that added extra micro potential either. He is immediately remaking that Warp Prism. No, the Biles! Oof.
One of them does land, but the other two were a little bit off-center, unfortunately.
Exactly, the Oracles of StarDuck have survived. Fourth base is on the way. The stack defense is a little bit late, but it looks like it will finish up just in time to deal with these Lings. Oh.
Nothing to really worry about.
Yeah, we even have a little bit of an interception here by StarDuck. He does catch all these Lings and will be able to clean them up. So even though it was a little bit devastating that he got his Warp Prism sniped, it just means that he couldn't be aggressive. He still had a base behind it, like he can still macro up and he can still, you know, refine his army that much more with charge.
Yeah, you don't want to be pushing up a ramp with just Blink Stalkers.
Yeah, that can be a scary prospect. Another interesting thing to take note of is that he is going for that Swarm Toss style. Going for mass gateway units. He doesn't really have any splash damage. No Colossus or no Disruptors. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, I feel like there is a place for Colossus and for either one of those. But he has a lot of Blink Stalkers. A surprising amount, actually.
One could say an overwhelming amount, but not just yet. Oracle's coming back down and just trying their best to chip away at the damage. EnDerr finally making headway!
He is. Every single worker here at the third base goes down. Finally, we have a warping of Zealots. We needed that desperately earlier, but it's a little bit too late. StarDuck will lose the third.
At least yes. I'm not sure how much of a consolation that really is right now. EnDerr not going to be pushing the counterattack. He realizes how that might have led to a little bit of a loss in game one.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, no, the Zealots, they go in a little bit too soon. They get mass surrounded by all of these things. At the same time, the Ravagers are intercepted by these Blink Stalkers. Oh, but the Ravagers are able to back off just in time.
Just like so.
Yeah.
Counterattack has to do quite a bit, and this time he does have the Warp Prism, so yeah, StarDuck is going to be able to reinforce his main army. Charge lots, I like that a lot.
Yeah, the Chargers are honestly doing a lot here to help buffer and help soak so much damage for these Stalkers. Is it going to be enough there? The Prism again!
Does get sniped before it could finish its warp in. StarDuck losing a lot of ground here. The armies don't look too big, but keep in mind, EnDerr has plenty in production at the moment, and he does have the defensive advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the only thing keeping StarDuck in this game is the fact that EnDerr just hasn't really been droning. His drone count isn't amazing. He is making a wave of 12 drones, but we have a bit of a Zealot run by. A little bit distracted on this Evo chamber, so it is going to give EnDerr time to respond with his own roaches.
I mean, he desperately needed.
Yeah. We get a little bit of a right click there. Zealots are going to be doing some damage at the same time. StarDuck wants to hit this fourth base. He is finally getting some drone kills, but I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Yeah, I'm as skeptical as you are, right?
Boy, as the Mutas come out, they take down the Oracle as well, and I feel like that's kind of the nail in the coffin, the Mutas. The Spire was thrown down earlier, and now EnDerr feels free enough to go into that mass Muta, and StarDuck is still struggling back at home.
But at least this time he does have a Twilight Council a little bit quicker, I suppose. And look at that, already 3 Archons are on the way. Meanwhile, EnDerr already going to Hive Tech, so
yeah, the Hive is on the way, Pathogen Glands as well for Infestors. Muta's about to hit that fourth base, and this base is the most important one, and oh god, there's nothing to defend it. Every single probe here is going to be going down. StarDuck is going to attempt to respond. He does have a decent anti-air army, but it's also a relatively slow army.
yeah, even with Blink, there's still plenty of ground to cover. And what is Blink going to do when your Zerg opponent hides in the main base like this?
Yeah, the recall was pretty nice here to go into the main base to keep up with all these Mutas. So the Mutas aren't dealing anywhere near as much damage as they could have, but like any damage is still insane, right? 9 more probe kills.
Really? 9? It's a hell of a lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah, exactly. He's looking to even deny +3, and it looks like he will. Up!
Nicely done here from EnDerr, and at this point he can kind of do whatever.
Yeah, the Mutas have already more than paid for themselves. Another 10 workers go down. Behind all of this, EnDerr is just remaxing with Ling, Roach, Ravager, a couple of Infestors as well to help round some things out. He is now maxed. StarDuck is being given a lot of time to try and rebuild, but unfortunately his army just isn't the most sophisticated. Going for a mass swarm style like this, like it has a little bit of a timer on it, and I'm sure he wanted to end the game earlier. Again, lined up with the Warp Prism, I'm sure he wanted to overwhelm EnDerr, but every single time the Warp Prism was just so exposed.
Yeah, it's kind of the unfortunate thing about your opponent having biles like that, and now with the Mutalists out, like you're saying, I highly doubt that StarDuck is going to be taking too many more risks here. He's going to have to babysit this Warp Prism even more than he was previously, which was not a whole lot, to be fair.
Yeah, what I will say is that StarDuck does have a pretty strong army, but EnDerr has the spellcasters. He just finished Neural as well. If he wants to, he can just take control of every single one of these Archons.
Does he have?
There you guys for it!
What is it? There, you called it! And the detection is here, though, for StarDuck, so he is able to snipe these.
Mates.
He is able to snipe these infestors!
Mate, who needs
All
workers?
of the units were clumped up as well.
Oh my god!
The Archons were able to get plenty of volleys off. That's the third Warp Prism taken out here of StarDuck, but the army is still standing strong. The Archons have not been dealt with, and there are still plenty of Stalkers left here.
The problem is that we have 23 Roaches on the way. Even though StarDuck had an amazing fight, he has finite units. Here we go, the Roach reinforcements are coming in, and it's barely going to be enough. I'm so impressed with how StarDuck was able to engage there. He did more than anyone else could have thought he could do, but it still wasn't enough.
At the end of the day, you just can't fight the numbers, can you?
Exactly. Like, EnDerr had a massive bank to work with. He does spend that bank, and if you look at the workers, we are now even in those workers, but without disruptors and without Archons, like, without disruptors or without immortals, like, Master Roach can be pretty good.
As demonstrated.
Yeah.
Even Archons on your own, if you don't have a buffer for him. If you do have a couple of Archons, it's not going to be that useful. Look at that immediate or instant DPS here coming out from the Roaches of EnDerr. Battery overcharging can help none.
Exactly. The overcharge is doing whatever it can, and with these Zealots, again, Zealots are so valuable against Roaches. They do buffer a little bit here, so StarDuck is able to hold on again. Goes for another Zealot run by, takes out the 5th base. Again, EnDerr just doesn't. He's not remaking his drones, puppy. He's just not.
And that's gonna hurt him a lot in the long run. StarDuck, in all fairness, doesn't have a very good economy either. But he has a much better unit, so yeah, and he is remaking his probes. So if he just survives, I think he has a real shot at coming back in this game.
Yeah, we'll see if EnDerr turns around. EnDerr is about to hit that 3rd base. Meanwhile, StarDuck has revealed himself. Oh, EnDerr turns around! StarDuck buying a lot of time. Okay, but there we go. He turns around again. He's going back towards the Nexus.
Yeah, he didn't get fully debated. Not this time.
Oh, the High Templar!
So, whoa! Okay. The Archon does get taken out before it finishes morphing, but I gotta tell you, like, that was pretty impressive how quickly he was able to hit that button. GG is called, though, because in the end, you cannot fight against math, and EnDerr only needs un momento por favor to qualify for the close qualifiers of DreamHack Masters Valencia, Oceania / rest of Asia. Qualifiers.
GG, EnDerr is so close. He only needs one more to make it through, as you were saying. And StarDuck, he was fighting back quite hard there. I was so surprised with his fight there towards the end. But it's just, you know, he just didn't really have much of an economy. The Mutas had done their job. They had crippled StarDuck's economy enough that even with an amazing fight, it wasn't going to break EnDerr. Not completely.
Yeah, not quite. But almost.
Almost, mate. that was closer than it should have been.
And now all bets are off. Just trying to find StarDuck here to invite him to the.
Yeah, we are just setting up. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a little bit of a break here, just because, again, EnDerr's on match point, and
replay, right?
And StarDuck cannot lose a game from here. He's up against the wall, and you mentioned it before in the previous series. You know, there is no lower bracket.
There is no lower bracket. There is a second qualifier, so it's not as dramatic. But again, it's even more. The second qualifier of Oceania rest of Asia is, in my opinion, the most brutal of the qualifying of all the qualifiers, just because you don't have that 1-day break that you have from something like Taiwan, Hong Kong, Latin America, or China. It is literally less than 24 hours.
Yeah, back to back, mate. Back to back. So it's a little bit brutal. You require a lot of stamina, a lot of willpower. Oh boy, but we'll get there when we get there because we still have at least one more game before us in this series.
Hopefully 2.
Hopefully 2.
Alrighty then, we are going to be loading into Leningrad LE to of course continue our series here. We're in the bottom right hand corner map, starting all the way in the bottom right hand corner. We have a blue Zerg player coming out from the land of the Philippines. He only needs un momento por favor to qualify for those close qualifiers. He is of course going to be representing the juggernaut, that nautical army, otherwise known as the Navy. He is El Conquistador himself, Caviar Napoleon Maquises Acampado, otherwise known as EnDerr.
And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Berlingrad ALE, we have the Australian Protoss player himself representing the CranKy Ducklings. Oh, up against the wall, one more loss, and he is done. He is out. It's the Duck of the Stars. It is StarDuck.
I do want to especially commend StarDuck a bit today because, you know, as much as we do give him a little bit of a hard time with all the Kerrigan Survival 2 that he's been playing, this week has not been kind for him. He literally had an exam a couple of hours ago, so yeah, it has been a little bit rough, but he has been able to make it all the way here to the qualifiers and has a really good shot of qualifying as well.
Yeah, like, we don't want to be making excuses for our players, but, like, the reality is that both StarDuck and Oreo have been focusing a lot on university recently. Unfortunately, they weren't able to, again, spend as much time as they would like practicing StarCraft and preparing for DreamHack, which is a bit of a shame, but again, that's not going to stop them from trying. It's not going to stop them from being here in these qualifiers, and maybe, despite all of that, despite, you know, it being exam time and all that stuff, maybe they can still make it.
Yeah, they definitely have a pretty good shot here, and I mean, they are kind of, not to toot our own horns a little bit, but they are kind of favorites in most scenarios.
Oh,
it really just depends on who shows up and when. Yeah,
and I don't know if I like this, mate. I'm a little bit afraid. Kind of. There's a lot going on right now. There's a lot to take in. One, StarDuck is opening up with a Robo first. Very unorthodox. This kind of tells us that this should be a bit of a disruptor drop. Meanwhile, EnDerr is droning up a little bit more. Is this going to be the one game where he doesn't Link Flood? Because I feel like if he does, like, StarDuck's still going to have a lot to defend.
This is where the mind games come in light. So, StarDuck, EnDerr rather, knows that it's Leningrad, and he has been going for the Link Floods 3 games in a row.
He's doing
and he
it.
knows that StarDuck is probably... Okay, there you go.
He's going for the same old Link Flood. 27 drones is all you need, and now you just hammer that Z key, and we'll see if StarDuck can hold on without an Oracle this time.
I'm gonna throw my entire theory down the drain.
Oh boy, that's sometimes what you have to do when you cast a player like EnDerr. Here we go, the Lings are on the way. We do have a full wall off. We don't have a preemptive shield battery behind this, so I'm a little bit afraid. We do have one Stalker and one Adept though, and not that much surface area on the gateways. So we'll see if StarDuck can defend without losing too much.
Yeah, that's the worrisome part, because a build like this, when you are going for the disruptor drop, is timed out to be as efficient as possible. So he is going to be cutting a couple of corners. Now he is taking this a little bit more seriously though. He's warping in more Adepts. But this gateway is going to go down. It's still a full wall with the body blocking, but
That was very close. Again, very nice re-wall here by StarDuck. Meanwhile, EnDerr dives into the main base and he sees everything. He confirms the Robo as well as the Robotics Bay. Unfortunately, StarDuck couldn't really stop this and he just switches gears!
May as well.
Oh my god. I love this, but I'm a little bit afraid because the Overlord is still alive. You know, he can still come back into that main base if StarDuck isn't too careful. Meanwhile, even though the Disruptor drop gets scouted, it's still coming across the map.
Yeah, what are the reactions going to look like here from EnDerr?
Oh god, that is the question. Here we go, the first Disruptor comes out, Nova goes off, and it looks like it will kind of connect with the Lings.
Kind of.
And StarDuck is not going into Void Race.
Mass Phoenix? Alright, that's an interesting choice here. Of course, this does mean that if EnDerr goes for that Spire eventually, his Mutas really should be able to accomplish too much, but as we can see right now, EnDerr, he's not planning to go for the Spire just yet. He's working on Roaches.
Yeah, StarDuck has to be feeling very confident about his control because he's going to be working with Phoenixes as well as Disruptors. So he will have some form of splash damage to help deal with all those Roaches. Meanwhile, we do have a bit of a scout here. This is what I was worried about. The Overseer dips in and does confirm all the Phoenixes.
So EnDerr's got to be switching up plenty of gears right now. If he was thinking of going for the Spire eventually, he probably isn't gonna now.
Yeah, exactly, but he doesn't need to because, again, like, Roach Ravager can do really well against this, and he still does...
I stand corrected!
Yeah, he still throws down the Spire. To be fair, he doesn't need to go into Mutas, like, he could just go straight into Corruptors.
Yeah. Probably the best anti-Phoenix unit other than Hydra's available for the Zerg player, so yeah, we'll see if this works out for him. StarDuck being very active with the Phoenixes, gonna go get a couple of drone kills.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like there are a couple of exposed Overlords here. So first we'll get the Overlords, then he can go for the drones. There is 0 spines in the base, in the natural. Sorry, the spore is out of position.
Yeah, only now our Spore Crawler is gonna be finishing up for EnDerr.
Yeah, and there's not enough engine for Transfuse. He gets a second Queen.
Yeah, 2 Queens, exchange of 1 Phoenix. Well worth it right now.
Hey.
Well worth it right now for StarDuck. He's gonna get every Queen.
He gets every single Queen, plus 2 Overlords, plus a bunch of drones as well. And he is not done from here. Meanwhile, the Spire finally finished up. Corruptors can now be produced. But if EnDerr's not careful, he could even get supply blocked.
But thankfully, with the death of the Queens and the drones, he won't get supply blocked.
Yeah, we have to Funada EnDerr a little bit here, because despite scouting this well ahead of time, it's not like he scouted and then the Phoenix has made a beeline across the map. He was a little bit negligent in his response. It took him a while to get these spores up and running. The Queens were exposed as well. Like, he just didn't really have the position that he needed to, and because of that, these Phoenixes are getting a little bit out of control.
Yeah, and they're definitely banking on getting Corruptors out in time before these Mutalisks hit, but as you said, he was being a little bit complacent. He didn't expect StarDuck to move across the map that quickly. Even though it wasn't a rush or anything, or it wasn't like he made a beeline.
Exactly, and with all this, eventually the Phoenixes will be cleaned up. You know, as you were saying earlier, Corruptors are kind of a hard counter to Phoenixes, but StarDuck bypasses the Corruptors. He's diving back in. He wants to deal as much damage as possible as he is transitioning back at home.
Yeah, something a little bit more solid, at least when it comes to the ground army of the Zerg player. EnDerr is not turning around if his Corruptors at all. At all.
Oh, I'm a little bit worried. I thought we were going to have some Stalkers back at home, but we have no anti-air. The Corruptors are going to be able to caustic spray down this Nexus. At the same time, StarDuck is going across the map with everything he has.
And it's a lot.
Oh god, there's a massive amount of Zealots. He also has the Disruptor here as well. He's going to the freshest spaces to try and take down all these drones.
They should be able to get them.
He wants them so bad. He's trying to chase them down at the same time. Looks like the Zealots and the Immortals are a little bit out of position here. I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned. Eventually, the Roaches are going to make their way through, but no, they are not. The Zealots are buying these Immortals a lot of time.
And even if the Roaches and Ravagers were able to make it on through, the damage has already been dealt. 17 drones have gone down. And that base.
Wow, the recall saves both Immortals just in time. Not a single one of them died. And those Zealots were able to chase down all those drones. 17 went down.
And what does EnDerr do from here? So he still has a pretty massive army. He could go for a counterattack, but it's going to be against a Protoss player who is a little bit more fortified. DTs are coming down.
Oh,
see it.
Man, we have a mass amount of DTs. We do have a lot of spores to help deal with this, to help provide vision. But the Roaches, they were across the map. They were not ready for this at all. The DTs are going to deal a lot of damage before they come back home.
Like so. I said, okay.
Exactly. At the same time, Corruptors go across the map. They were able to get one base earlier, and now they're going for the main base as well. We do have some Stalkers, but quickly checking, we don't have Blink. They get a second Nexus.
Nicely done here from EnDerr. Definitely one way of clawing his way back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, mate, killing 2 bases is no joke. There we go. I feel like StarDuck has recognized that, mate, I lack anti-air. I need something else other than Blinkless Stalkers. He goes for Archons, but I'm worried that EnDerr, he has his eyes on another base.
A base that will not be well fortified whatsoever, but in all fairness, I'm not really liking the defenses of EnDerr either.
Yeah, it's one of those things, mate. StarDuck doesn't care about his bases back at home. He's going to lose another Nexus. But look at this army. Looking at the units tab, what do we have here at home to defend? We have 35 Roaches. A lot of Roaches, don't get me wrong. Is this really going to be enough here? Can StarDuck break through?
All depends on how successful he can get with those biles.
Yeah, it looks like he just doesn't have enough. He needs more Zealots here. He needs more of a buffer for his army. He cannot break up this ramp, and because of that, he's losing a lot across the map. Like, a lot of bases are falling.
Yeah, pretty soon he's not really going to be able to sustain his army for too much longer.
Yeah.
And they're still hesitant to fight into this army, and I can't say I blame him. 5 Archons and 4 Immortals sound like they hit harder than a truck made of diamonds.
No, the biles connect with the Archon. StarDuck is all in, and he's taking every single bile to the face. He cannot afford this. He's losing so much back at home. He has nothing at home to defend. Going to lose another base, and even though StarDuck was looking great here earlier, he was doing so much damage, he's falling apart a little bit.
Yeah, it is.
Ooh.
A little bit unfortunate to witness here, but these Corruptors, man, I think I personally underestimated them quite a bit, and StarDuck might have as well, because they are winning under the game right now. The Disruptor did shoot a Purification Nova, but it didn't really connect. GG is called. EnDerr will be the first player of this evening to qualify for the close qualifiers.
GG, well played. EnDerr does it. He takes the game in the entire series. StarDuck, I loved what he was doing, you know, starting off with a bit of a disruptor drop, going into switching completely into Phoenixes, switching into charge shots, switching into DTs. Like, I love everything that he was doing. Unfortunately, he decided to go all in. He made the choice to not worry about those Corruptors. He thought he had enough to overwhelm the ground. Unfortunately, he did underestimate the Roaches of EnDerr. EnDerr did not have a great economy, but he did have a solid army, and StarDuck just couldn't force the end of the game. He just couldn't break through that Roach wall of EnDerr.
Just about couldn't. There is a little part of me that's huffing that copium and thinking, man, if only those biles didn't connect. But no, at that point it was a little bit too late. Like, sure, maybe StarDuck could have kept the game going, but yeah, his economy by that point was kind of in shambles.
Yeah, he wasn't necessarily losing a lot of probes, but he was just losing base after base after base. Again, StarDuck, he gambled a little bit there. You could argue he didn't need to. I would argue that as well. I think he smelled blood in the water, so I don't blame him. He's like, yo, I can go for the 1-2 punch. I can end the game here and now. Where StarDuck could have just stayed at home with his army, defended his bases, gotten 4 bases up and running, and out macroed EnDerr. I do think that was an option available to him. He just decided, you know, to go for an earlier kill there instead. And just a little bit of misjudgment there by StarDuck. Ay.
Yeah. But of course, this is not the end for our Ducklings. Both Oreo and StarDuck have another chance to come back tomorrow in qualifier number 2. It is going to be tough. It is going to be very, very tough, but I have utmost confidence in them. Meanwhile, congratulations to EnDerr, of course, and to the Juggernauts. They just about have every player still in their respective tournaments.
There you go. Beastwork made it to the closed qualifiers. EnDerr made it to the closed qualifiers as well. Gogojoy and Miyamaika got their seeds. So congratulations to Juggernauts. The boys are in. The Duckling Aussie boys, I should say, are still looking to make their way through as well. Again, I am still proud of StarDuck. You know, the series, even though it was a 3-1, was pretty goddamn close.
Yeah, honestly.
Oh my god, I'm still remembering the Glittering Ashes game where he just like dived on the infestors, focus fired every single one of them down, and won the fight. I was like, oh, how? He's like down 80 supply. How did he do it?
Tactical genius.
Yeah. Oh my god. So with that, GG, congratulations to EnDerr, Napoleon, Marquises Acampado. Well played.
Sí.
And with that, we have finished our first qualifying match, but we have another for us as well.
We do. We already have confirmation, and we actually also have some updates there, as Twitch.tv/Renegade X Studios is currently covering Piglet versus Pez, with Piglet being up 1 map in that series.
Oh, thank you for that update, Yaku. I appreciate it. So, if you want to tune into Piglet versus Pez, check out Renegade over on Renegade X Studios. I guess now is a good opportunity to talk a little bit about what happened. Piglet did 2-0 Nux, and not gonna lie, I think we all saw that coming. Nux isn't quite on the level.
A bit of the underdog there.
Yeah, he's not quite on the level of a lot of these other players here. But NXZ really popped off. He took down favorites, mate. He took down far stronger players, especially because NXZ is out of practice, but he was stopped by Pez.